Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, Nick is here in attendance with me once again, as today we are going to be going through our recap on Monday Night Raw. We're closing in on the Elimination Chamber. It's a couple of weeks away. We're getting up to that event very, very soon, but for now, we still do have a couple of weeks just to go through all of our weekly reactions still. Monday Night Raw would take place last night, and we would kickstart the show with a little bit of Sami Zayn. So, honestly, starting things off in the right way for me personally, he would come on down after, suffering that hellacious attack from Kevin Owens a couple of weeks ago, the package power driver. And Sami Zayn would clearly not be 100%. He'd be not exactly like completely immobile. He'd be able to walk and whatever. And he seemed to be okay. But you could tell by the look on his face, by the way he was acting, that he wasn't quite 100%. And he mentioned that during his promo in the middle of the ring, where he would go on to say that, my neck, I'm not going to pretend I'm 100%, but I'm ready for a fight. I'm ready to respond to Kevin Owens, and I want to fight him in Canada. Obviously, that's where the Elimination Chamber is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. And that is exactly what Sami Zayn wants to do. He wants to accept the challenge that Kevin Owens initiated on Friday Night SmackDown this past Friday. So he would demand the match with Kevin Owens. Adam Pearce would come down shortly afterwards, and he would basically go on to say that, you know what, Sami, I can't possibly authorize this contest. You are not medically cleared. You won't be medically cleared in that time, and it's just not a smart move. It doesn't make any sense, and you could get seriously, seriously hurt, or even more so than you are already. Sami wouldn't take very kindly to those comments. He would basically say, you know what, I am ready. I'm absolutely fine. I'm ready to go. I'll have a couple of weeks still, and I'll be ready to take on Kevin Owens. I need this match. It needs to happen because I need to get back at him. Adam Pearce would, be very, very nonchalant. He'd walk back up the ramp. He'd basically say, this isn't happening. That is final. I'm not going to authorize it. Sami would follow him up the ramp. They would have a little bit of a back and forth further on in the conversation. Before Sami would eventually turn up the convincing, and he would basically get to a point where he would force Adam Pearce's hand, referencing how long he has known Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, all through their careers. And eventually, I think it would sort of maybe tug at the heartstrings of Adam Pearce, knowing how much Sami really wants this contest. And Adam Pearce would just eventually say, you know what, okay, fine, you're going to get the match, but I cannot authorize this. I can't sanction it, so it's going to be an unsanctioned match at the Elimination Chamber. I mean, I think throughout the entirety of the conversation between these two men, you could kind of tell this is the direction that they were going to be going, making it an unsanctioned contest. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And that just sort of basically highlights how severely important and, intense that this match could really be for both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So it's going to be really, really interesting. In the height of the Toronto crowd, that's going to be quite something to really see exactly how both men are, perceived and received in that contest. But I'm excited for it. It should be really good. And an unsanctioned match between Sami and Kevin Owens, I look forward to it. We would then go into our next segment with a little bit of AJ Styles going one-on-one with Dom Mysterio. So this will be AJ Styles' first match back since getting injured towards the mid to back end of last year against Carmelo Hayes on Friday Night SmackDown. Styles will return at the Royal Rumble, and he'd be on last week's Raw, setting up a match between him and Dom Mysterio for this week. AJ Styles would go on to defeat Dominic Mysterio in what you would expect. Carlito would be at ringside, he would interfere, but it wouldn't be enough. AJ would have too much about him, and he would manage to overcome the numbers game, and he would eventually get the victory over Dominic Mysterio. As AJ Styles was celebrating, you could see Bron Breakker from behind, prepping for a spear on AJ Styles. Breakker would go for the spear, Styles would duck out the way, and Bron would actually hit Dominic Mysterio instead, allowing an opportunity for Styles to get Bron Breakker out of the ring and to stand tall in the ring after all the confrontation between, I guess, the three men really, involved in the situation now. So, Bron Breakker hitting Dominic Mysterio by accident when he was aiming for AJ Styles. It's clear as day that these two are going to go one-on-one, going down the line. Probably for the Intercontinental Championship at an event soon, whether it's going to be Elimination Chamber, whether this builds into WrestleMania. I don't think that could happen, maybe. It'd be a long build if it was the case. But yeah, possibly an Elimination Chamber contest between these two men for the IC title. I mean, I'm just glad to see AJ Styles back, and he got a win over Dominic Mysterio. We would then have a one-on-one match with the women's division. And this would have the Women's Intercontinental Championship implications. We would have Dakota Kai going 1-on-1 with Ivy Nile, where the winner would become the new #1 contender for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Dakota Kai, she would be the runner-up to Lara Valkyria in the inaugural championship tournament that we would have last month, a couple of months ago, I think, for the IC title. And Dakota Kai would actually defeat Ivy Nile in a pretty competitive match between the two women, a little bit back and forth throughout the majority. And yeah, Dakota Kai eventually securing the victory over Ivy Nile. I had a feeling Ivy Nile was going to win this one, so I was quite surprised to see Dakota get the dub and to go on now and have a rematch with Lara Valkyria, the woman who beat her for that Intercontinental Championship. So yeah, it's interesting that they're running this match back again. I'm surprised to see that happen, but I'm not exactly against it. I quite like what Dakota's doing recently. It's good to see her, in action, and I would love to see her be successful in the championship picture. I feel like Lara Valkyria, she's only really just got started. So are we really thinking that she could drop the title to Dakota Kai? If it was Ivy Nile, I would say absolutely 100% no. Like that wouldn't happen. But them giving Dakota another shot is quite interesting. So I'm interested to see what your take on that is, Nick. But yeah, Dakota winning, new #1 contender, certainly got me thinking, that's for sure. And then we go into our next moment after that, next segment, where we would have Der Ring General Gunther, the World Heavyweight Champion. He would make his way through the crowd, very Jey Uso style. He'd come on down. He would be insulting Jey. He'd be insulting the WWE Universe, basically saying how a simple man like Jey Uso is perfect for the simple WWE Universe. It all fits together, and he's very much not a fan of the whole yeeting scene. He would make his way down the ramp, down the crowd, and he would eventually make his way towards the announcers table. Pat McAfee and Michael Cole, obviously being there, calling the action throughout the night. Gunther would stand on the table and basically ask them both, do you think I can beat Jey? No, do you think Jey can beat me at WrestleMania? Do you really think there's a possibility that can happen? Pat and Cole, a little bit awkward at first, do we answer? Do we seriously answer this? Do you want us to answer now? They would ask a couple of questions. And eventually Pat McAfee would actually buck up some confidence, and he would say, you know what? I think Jey can beat you, and I hope Jey can beat you. That obviously didn't impress Gunther. He wasn't very happy to hear that. Looked like maybe Gunther was going to take a little bit of action towards Pat McAfee, but sooner rather than later, Jey Uso would come on down, and he would basically nullify the World Heavyweight Champion. It would result in Jey standing alone in the middle of the ring, Gunther, on the ramp, and Jey would then be allowed to yeet away to the crowd for, I don't know, what probably felt like a few minutes afterwards. I don't actually know how long it was. But yeah, those 4 segments there, kicking off the show from Sami Zayn all the way to AJ Styles and Braun Breaker, Dakota Kai, Lara Valkyria, getting a rematch, and then Gunther with the whole Jey Uso, Pat McAfee, Cole situation. What did you think about how Monday Night Raw started? Personally, I thought it was actually a pretty good start, and it just sort of like meshed in quite nicely in these 4 segments. But what did you think? What did you think, Nick?
Yeah, just the preview for Monday Night Raw was very good looking, and I think perhaps a little worried that maybe my expectations were a little too high. That being said, this first part felt like there were a bunch of promos and recaps and stuff, but it kind of all tied in pretty nicely. First of all, and I'm sure you'll agree with this part, it was great to see Raw kick off with something other than Jey Uso. I'm not the biggest fan, but I don't dislike him quite as much as you do. But I think it was, eventually you need to see something else. Makes me think back to the GMs when the GMs would start every show. We don't want to see the same thing every single week. That was nice to see, especially Sami Zayn coming out to kick off the show was refreshing to see. The back and forth between them was a bit awkward. No fault of Sammy. I think just Adam Pearce being Adam Pearce. He just got a weird demeanor to him, and I think we all knew where it was headed. It was just a strange way to go about it, I guess. But regardless, the end result is the same, and I think it's what we all want to see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens go at it. My only kind of caveat to that is I kind of felt like that was going to be a Mania thing, and obviously it still can be, but you know, I think this one has to deliver, and maybe something happens here, or maybe something prevents it from happening. Who knows? But yeah, you could give me that match, 7 days a week, and you wouldn't hear any complaints from me. So AJ Styles and Dom Mysterio. I think most of us kind of figured the outcome of that one. Ron Breaker feels like it feels like over the last couple of months we've just seen endless amounts of potential contenders for Braun. Um, but I gotta say that AJ Styles and Braun probably has the best sound to it. Um, you mentioned that being an elimination chamber. I'm perfectly fine with that. But it also sounds pretty damn good for a Mania match too. And you know, AJ Styles is an absolute veteran. He hasn't lost a step, and he just looked incredible here. But yeah, AJ Styles and Braun Breaker, sign me up. One slight issue with this particular match, you know, it's not so much the Judgment Day had interference, because obviously we've seen that time and time again, and it's just how the cookie crumbles. But it seemed to be an overlying theme for the evening, and that kind of bothered me a bit. So we'll discuss that a little more later as the occurrences come up. But need to find a better way to, if we don't want someone to lose clean, we want to help make them look better. There are other ways to do it, I think. But anyways, that being said, moving on to the Ivy Nile versus Dakota Kai. That was a good match. Again, the crowd felt like they just didn't care about this one, and that, it is upsetting. And part of me is, looking further into that, thinking, well, why does it seem to be the women's matches that always kind of get this treatment? And 90% of the time it does feel that way. But I think that's the underlying problem here with the Intercontinental title is well, first of all, Dakota Kai is on her own, not having anything to do with damage control at this point, gets her own, entrance and that sort of thing. So I think that might play a role. So now she's a babyface again, which is fine. I think she's great as a babyface, but that seemingly kind of just happened. With Valkyria, I feel like we've seen this match before. Oh, that's right, we did. It was a month ago. It was exactly a month and 4 days before this. And so that's interesting. And even like the picture that you see there, like it's like there's no story to it. I think that's kind of the issue. And I think with a lot of the mid card titles at the moment, the story just isn't really there. And I think in particular, the women's IC title probably suffers from that the most. Valkyria just feels like she's kind of just going through the motions. I know we're still early and everything, but her having lost last week too, it's just, I don't know. It just feels like there's no fire underneath her at the moment. And maybe, and I think we both agree that Dakota Kai was probably the better choice, simply because of how much she's done for the business, how long she's been in the business. Just felt like it was right to give her that, and Valkyria felt like probably a better chasing kind of story. But regardless, here we are. I honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they give it to Kai. Um, but they won't even put it on the Elimination Chamber. It's going to be on the Monday Night Raw instead, which is also kind of a head scratcher. If your issue is fans don't care about it because you're not giving them a story, well, you're only furthering that issue if you just put it on Raw instead of a PLE. And that's another theme we saw throughout the night as well. But more on that later too. Gunther, this is probably my favorite segment of the night. Gunther coming in like Jey Uso, and as soon as I heard that phrase, and I may be off a little bit, but it was something to the effect of the simple gesture for simple people, and I said, "Oh, KB will love that." Because it kind of does hold true, and as if we needed any reason to love Gunther even more, his dislike towards the eating, and it's kind of playing down exactly how KB feels towards the movement. So that's great. I love this segment, and Pat McAfee obviously can work with anyone, and so I think that was a great back and forth. And Gunther really feels like he's being genuine, towards his hate towards the whole movement. But then, yeah, this was nice. Again, not being the thing that started off the show was a great change of pace as well. But yeah, I think we'll continue to see this back and forth. I think in terms of storytelling, it really didn't do much other than the fact that telling us that everyone's behind Jay and no one's behind Gunther, and, I'm sure you won't get any. I'm sure I won't get anything with you disagreeing on this one, but just had me thinking. Imagine if Gunther actually does retain at Mania. Um, the heel and the heat that Gunther would get from that would quite possibly be all time. That went through my mind while watching the segment, and I wouldn't be mad at it, honestly. I think he deserves that, and what a feather on his cap that would be to shut down the Heat movement. And whatever, gave it to him the next PLE or something, but the heat that he would generate from that would be incredible.
Book it. Book it. Monster heel. Who says no? It's absolutely flawless. It's a great idea. I would be down for that 100%. Obviously, you know that. And yeah, that to me sounds delightful. But you made a load of good points here across these 4 segments. I think especially with yeah, the dynamic between Lyra and Dakota, having that match once again, I really am not sure what like the end goal is here, except for Dakota winning that championship, which I wouldn't be mad about, but it's just a bit of an odd one, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, some very good ways to kick off the show here. I didn't really have a point where I was like uninterested, where in recent Raws I have been like that. So this was a really good start, and we would continue to go on with the action throughout the remainder of the night. And next up, we would go into a match between Penta and Pete Dunne. So we had a bit of interaction last week between them after the match between Penta and Ludwig Kaiser. And yeah, that would lead into this week. And Pete Dunne and Penta, they would have their match. And who would show up? None other than Ludwig Kaiser. So all 3 men seemingly staying involved with one another here throughout the majority of this this story. We get to a point where Penta would be taken advantage. Ludwig Kaiser would try and get involved, and he would a little bit aid Pete Dunne to begin with, but Pete Dunne would eventually realize what was going down, and then we'd be like, well, what are you doing? Stay out of my business. I don't need you here, whatever. That sort of scenario. Pete Dunne very proud, very, very, like solo-minded, and he didn't want anything to do with Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser would be knocked off of the apron. Penta would have an opportunity to take advantage of Pete Dunne, and he would get the victory and would defeat Pete Dunne shortly afterwards. After the contest, Kaiser would attack Penta. That would then lead to a brawl between Dunne and Kaiser on the outside before Penta would stand tall in the ring after hitting a topic on Hilo to basically just cancel out both men. But, I mean, Penta continues to be booked really, really well since coming over to WWE. Seems to be an absolute star. The fans love him. He's just being presented so utterly well. And, yeah, he seems to be a tremendous fit for WWE right now. And he just continues to impress each and every week. Pete Dunne and obviously Kaiser being involved in the situation here. I think ultimately this leads to a triple threat at some point down the line. I'm not too sure when that's going to take place, but maybe on a Raw soon, or I don't know, who knows, maybe even an Elimination Chamber slot. I don't know. I feel like I'm sort of like, maybe vowing for a few matches here to go to the Elimination Chamber, but yeah, who knows when these are going to take place. But triple threat, I think, is the goal here. The basically the idea behind all this situation so far. But yeah, enjoyed the match. I thought it was good enough to be what it was, and yeah, continue to be impressed by what I've seen from Penta so far. We would then go into our next contest, which would be an Elimination Chamber qualifier for the women's division, and we would see Roxanne Perez going one-on-one with Raquel Rodriguez. So Roxy, if I am right here, Roxy's first match on Monday Night Raw. I could be wrong about that one, but I don't think she's competed on Raw before. So correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, Roxy one-on-one with Raquel Rodriguez and an Elimination Chamber spot on the line. The match will be going as you'd expect it to be. Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez, going back and forth, trading offense here and there. And it'll get to a point where Liv Morgan would be maybe getting a little bit too handsy on the outside. Bianca Belair and Naomi would come down to rush to the ring, and they would basically stick it to Liv Morgan. Ultimately, sticking it to Liv Morgan, distracts Raquel Rodriguez, domino effect that allows Roxanne Perez an opportunity to roll up Raquel and to score the victory after hitting the pop rocks. So Roxanne Perez, she advances to Elimination Chamber. She's had a tremendous last few months, really. The back end of her NXT Women's title reign, that was obviously very, very good, very solid. And now she's had a great Royal Rumble contest, was the Iron Woman in that matchup, and now she's in the Elimination Chamber. It's been an incredible, couple of months here for Roxanne Perez, the prodigy, one of the future stars of women's wrestling, especially in WWE. I think, she's just, propelling herself for an absolutely brilliant start to a main roster career. And if this is the kickoff, for her main roster career, as I just mentioned then, I think it's a very good way to get going. She's in the Elimination Chamber, and I think she deserves to be there. Raquel Rodriguez, obviously being distracted and losing the contest, that was, I think, ultimately the right call here. Liv Morgan's already in the chamber. You got the whole Jade Cargill situation, who attacked who, whatever. But it's got to a point now where we've got Bianca and Naomi basically blaming Liv and Raquel, and that seems to be where they're going from this for the time being, at least. How long that lasts, I'm not sure, but we'll have to wait and see. But for now, Roxanne Perez in the Elimination Chamber, that's just brilliant for her. We then go on to our next little segment of the night, which would see the New Day cutting a promo in the middle of the ring. They'd basically just use this as an opportunity to bash and insult Rey Mysterio for the entire part. It would be just them just completely verbally taking out Rey Mysterio, because after the attack from last week, he's not in a fit state to be there, so he wouldn't be able to respond. The promo would go on for a little while. It would eventually be interrupted by the LWO. We'd see the three of them coming out to the ring and to lay down a beatdown on the New Day. I mean, they got what they deserved, basically, I guess you could say from that one, right? It pretty much went exactly how you would think, and you speak a bit too much hate and you get hurt for it. But yeah, New Day just continue to get this lovely heat on themselves. They're doing a great job of it, and I am really enjoying the New Day segments at the moment. They're fantastic. Then we go into our main event of the night, which would see one-on-one match between Seth freaking Rollins and Finn Balor. This will be our last Elimination Chamber qualifier of the year. We've obviously got the women's field stacked out now, thanks to Roxanne Perez qualifying. But who would be the last man to advance onto Elimination Chamber for the men's division? It would be Seth freaking Rollins. He would defeat Finn Balor after a pretty competitive match between the two of them. When these two go in the middle of the ring against one another, it's always a classic, and this was no different. It was a very, very good contest between the two, and Seth Rollins ultimately coming off on the winning side in the end. I think it was the right call. Personally, Seth's got a lot going on right now, comparatively speaking to Finn Balor, who doesn't really have an awful lot going on outside of Judgment Day. Seth's obviously got, situations with Roman Reigns, possibly even CM Punk in the mix as well with that. But yeah, that chamber's going to be very, very interesting. It's extremely, extremely stacked. We've got some big, big names in there, and Seth Rollins has got a whole lot of attention on himself as well. So yeah, that could be carnage. As to what happens in the chamber, well, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, good match, great main event, and a very solid Raw, in all honesty with you. Nick, what did you think of these 4 segments here? How impressive is Penta, in your opinion, since coming over to WWE? Roxanne Perez, what a win for her, right? The New Day, LWO, seems to be what they're doing right now. What are your thoughts on that? And then Seth Rollins advances to the chamber.
Yeah, I personally, and this is kind of what I mentioned earlier, was that it was very promo recap heavy. That felt like the first half of Raw, but then the second half of Raw was very action heavy, and so that's why I didn't have any issue with it. Like overall, I didn't have an issue with the show. But yeah, Penta and Pete Dunne, where can you go wrong there? Similar to like the Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, a best of 7 with them two would be absolutely entertainment at its finest. No issues with Penta winning there. I think that was probably the expected outcome. The only issue I have here is, okay, we have another outside interference with Luke Kaiser, but at least this time it continues the story, I suppose. So I won't nitpick too much at that. But that did seem to be an underlying theme for the show. But yeah, no really other complaints for me. It was a great match, of course, as you would expect from these two, and we'll see where they take it from here. Ludwig is something about his smile and his character just have a way of getting under your skin, and so he's great at that. So no issues with continuing that for me. If you want to get all three of them and wherever that ends up falling. Roxanne and Raquel, as you know, this was hard for me to pick a winner. Obviously, I like both of them, and I hope the best for Raquel. And I think her heel work so far hasn't been what I think it could have been. That being said, I think she's getting a little more comfortable with it, and I think her segments are always entertaining. You know, backstage with the Judgment Day, I feel like she's starting to get a little better hang of it, and it could be character work, it could be how she's being booked. There's no way to know. But that being said, I felt like she made a statement here with Roxanne. I think you very much have the David versus Goliath kind of in ring mentality here, as you should. And so maybe that's why. But I feel like both competitors here, if anything, I would argue maybe Roxanne took a little too much offense from Raquel at the beginning. But you know, if we're still building her as this up and coming talent from NXT, I suppose it makes a little bit of sense. But I thought maybe at the beginning they kind of made her look a little weak. But the end result being that Roxanne was able to get the W and qualify for Elimination Chamber. So I think that speaks greater volumes than maybe me nitpicking at the first part of the match. But I think both of them look good here, with the exception that oh, what do you know? Again, we have outside interference. You know, Raquel sees Liv being manhandled, woman handled on the outside, and that distracts her and then allows Roxanne to get the pop rocks and get the 1, 2, 3. So again, third time in the night we've had outside interference. Yeah, not a big fan of that, but regardless, you know, the result being the same, I think that allows for Raquel, you know, maybe not to look the smartest because you know, that's just a WWE trope. If you see someone outside, you have to stare at them. If you see someone coming in, their entrance music hit, you have to stare at them. You know, that's just how it goes. So I won't nitpick too much at that. But it feels like, again, this leads to a story, and kind of what I said with the last match. This leads to the story of Raquel and Liv going up against Naomi and Bianca. And what was strange is the build of that kind of promised more on that story, and it feels like we just kind of just kept going with that. I think the reports are that Jade is currently working at the Performance Center, and so we'll see how much longer we're going to put that off. But it does feel like that's the elephant in the room. But for now, you know, announcing that tag championship match down the line, not at a PLE, but at a Monday Night Raw. But that's for another time as well. LWO coming in after the New Day basically attempts to bury Rey Mysterio. I feel like that's always WWE's one of their tropes as well. If you want heat, go after Rey Mysterio. Feels like we see that time and time again. Poor guy is always a victim of someone. But yeah, LWO comes in, you know, of course, stands up for their leader. It's I think it was kind of apparent why Dragon Lee and LWO aren't thriving at the moment. You know, their promo work isn't the best, unfortunately. But for what it is, I think their in-ring, I think their ability to put on a good match will certainly succeed. So yeah, looking forward to that. It's just I think LWO similar to the Judgment Day in terms of our interest in them. I think it just hasn't been there in a while. So, but yeah, I think the New Day is a good way to kind of spark interest there. And so if they can tell us a story, maybe we can get behind LWO once again. And main event, Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. Was there ever any doubt that this would be a good match? Not for me personally, and felt like it was pretty obvious in the outcome. But these guys are just absolutely, you know, amazing at the craft, and they showed it here. You know, leaving us several times thinking that maybe Finn Balor could get away with the win here. But yeah, this was incredible. Probably the best match of Raw so far this year. I think that's safe to say. But again, no surprise when you consider the talent involved here. I think Seth winning was the right decision. I think this furthers the story in that Finn denying they need another member And again, no one's helping him, and so maybe that plays a part in the story. So if this comes back next week, Dom can say, well, maybe we do need another member. He could have been out there to help you because the rest of Judgment Day had already been in action that night. So yeah, I think they're doing our best. I hopefully, um, my hope is that Finn Balor leaves and the new member is the one to replace him. But maybe wishful thinking. We'll see. I just want Finn Balor to go back to being a single star as he should be, and can put on more matches for us like this. But yeah, overall, great Raw. I think it was very much a part one, part two. Part one didn't give us a lot of action, but part two certainly made up for that. So yeah, overall, both the men's and the women's elimination chamber looking very enticing, and curious to see what else they end up putting on the card outside of the KO Sami Zayn match. I don't think that's quite enough for a full card. At least another match or two, I think, would be appropriate. But yeah, overall, again, everything that they've done tonight furthered the story and has us looking down the road, which at this time of the year, that's what we want to be doing. But yeah, it's 9 out of 10 again. I think it might have been when I gave it last week. Curious to hear your review overall as well. But yeah, not much to complain about. The things I do complain about are either underlying problems that you can't really fix on one show, or me nitpicking. So, but overall, it's a great show.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really solid show. I think it's been the best Raw that I've seen in like a little while now. I think post Mania, post Royal Rumble, it's been the best Raw since then. So yeah, step in the right direction. Last week was. This continues to be so, which was nice. But this felt like a big step up. I think for me personally as well, it was a better show. Just like decisions going my way for maybe a change, which was kind of nice. And yeah, knowing that Seth Seth, knowing that Sammy and Kevin Owens are going to be at the Elimination Chamber instead now, just makes me feel a lot happier. Like I feel like they didn't need that WrestleMania matchup, so yeah, I'm pleased with that. I'm happy with it. And then obviously you got like a load of other positives here on this show. Roxanne Perez qualifying, Seth Rollins qualifying. I can't wait to see the carnage that go down inside that elimination chamber. It's gonna be brilliant. And then yeah, the likes of Gunther calling or the WWE Universe simple, loving a simple idiot like Jey Uso. That gave me like a solid 6 points by itself. So yeah, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Pretty big advocate and a fan of everything that went down on this show. I don't really think there were any negatives per se, except for like little bits here and there. But yeah, no, really, really solid, and definitely really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, steps in the right direction, and elimination chambers are all stacked out now, all set up and ready to go. That's quite exciting, and yeah, starting to build some hype going into the chamber, which is great after the disappointment of the Royal Rumble. So that has been the push, everybody, with Nick and KP. We just reviewed Raw for this past week. Nick, is there anything that you'd like to add before we do head up here? Because yeah, otherwise we'll call this one out.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much more to add. I feel like I ranted a little bit, but I think most of what we're seeing is better than what we had been seeing. Just getting out of that rut from the premiere on Netflix. It feels like week by week we kind of see Raw kind of come into its own, and Netflix is probably weighing in pretty heavily on what we're having here. So I feel like we probably just had too many cooks in the kitchen, but it really does feel like the further away we get from that Raw debut, the better it's looking, and we find ourselves not complaining about each week, instead looking forward to what's going to happen. That's what I was doing. Last night I was like, I'm really looking forward to Raw. There's so many things going on, and they're doing a great job of looking forward to Mania and Elimination Chamber the same. So, but yeah, speaking of Elimination Chamber, we are also going to be doing a video of the 6 competitors in each match. We're going to discuss essentially what we would do if each person were to win. So almost a bit of fantasy booking, but more so just a talking point for the both of us, and how we would proceed with each particular member winning, both the men's and the women's. I think you could make a case for most of the participants. So it'll be an interesting bit content, and I think we'll have fun putting that out, and that should be out within just a couple of days.
Yeah, excited to release some more different content for for the channel here. Something that we are trying to sort of like be a bit innovative recently about, and just to basically just yeah, get some different stuff out there, which is quite exciting for us. But yeah, looking forward to doing that. But on the back of this one, then obviously with the Raw recap, I think that's one basically this is closed out now. So yeah, if you guys really enjoyed everything that we did here today, please hit a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. We're always looking for more people to hear what we've got to say, and yeah, we're just passionate about wrestling and looking for more passionate people too to share these opinions with. Let us know in the comments, guys, what you thought of the video as well, and what you think of our reactions to Raw. And yeah, let us know if you enjoyed it as well. For now, though, we'll see you all in the next one, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching and tuning in to The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much, guys, and see you next time.